me ask you a question. How much personal joy, I'm talking about happiness, the moments that define your life, that you can look back on no matter how you're feeling and put a smile on your face. How many of those moments have you experienced lately? How much personal joy do you actually have in this life? And I want you to compare that to those same exact feelings and memories that you can recall and the frequency that they happened in the past. And I want you to also ask yourself another question. Why has everything we have ever held dear and loved just vanished? It's gone. All of it. Personal joy is almost non-existent. And that's not just because my foundations have been ripped away from me and I have to rebuild. Like, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed this research. I enjoyed this life. I enjoyed being that guy that challenged your perspective. That's no longer the case, man. I don't enjoy making these videos. Okay? But I feel obligated to do so for some reason. And I'm just gonna talk in generality because, let's face it, there's no putting a finger on any of this. So let me start with, I used to work for the largest yarn distributor in the world, and I'm not going to blast their name out there because I'm not looking to make a big deal out of this, even though I probably should have. There's this co-worker, and I know that this guy is wicked on the left, and I don't really align myself politically. I'm an independent thinker. But this kid was always listening to podcasts that were out there, and he just new age stuff. So I felt like I could connect with him on at least the level of, hey, he has an open mind enough to hear me out, right? And we start talking about all kinds of things, man, and we're hitting it off, right? And then all of a sudden, he was around the first day that I heard about Flat Earth because he was the first person I bounced it off of. I'll never fucking forget it. I'll never forget it. You're gonna have to bear with me. I am coming up to a construction zone and there's a cop. So, hold up. Sorry about that. Anyway, he was the first person that I told about it, and I'll never forget it because that's when I realized, wow, the resistance to that topic's just absolute insanity. But he just flipped. He didn't flip when I brought that up. He dismissed it, but it was almost like that conversation never even happened after bringing it up. Which was odd because with other people I brought it up with, man, it stuck. I was known as that guy. You know what I'm saying? And that's usually the reaction you get. If somebody dismisses something like that and never brings it up again, there's a reason for it. And that goes with any topic, not just FE. But, so I knew I could bounce ideas off of this kid and he'd at least hear me out without going around and telling everybody I was crazy, right? Because if he was going to do that, he would have done it with Flat Earth, but he didn't. So then, he's talking about the Holocaust one day, right? And he asks me, he's like, man, it's crazy that somebody could conceivably kill 6 million Jewish people just out of pure hate. And I was like, I asked him a question. I was like, do you think anybody could hate a people that much that they would kill them? even though they were his only labor force driving the economy at that time, because everybody else was off fighting a war. So I was like, what logical sense does it make to kill your labor force? And instantly, the switch flipped in that kid's head. Not only did that mean Alan doesn't believe the narrative that the Holocaust happened the way that it is, now I can label him with something called Holocaust denier. And I dismissed it. At that point, I knew that our friendship was over just by the interactions. Like, I'm big on empathy. I can pick up on that. And people like me are like this. We have that connection to people that others have lost. Anyway, I knew that I just crossed the line. There's no coming back from this. There's no rebuilding this relationship. It's not going to happen. It's inconceivable to even try, okay? So I just let it go, and I stopped talking to him besides in passing, besides being polite. You know what I'm saying? I didn't go out of my way to bounce conspiracy theories. Now, I used to go over to this kid's house to hang out every now and again, too. And that stopped, too. So he had to have known there's a reason for that, and, like, he never showed any apprehension towards me. Now, there's a caveat to this story. His mom worked at this company for 20 years prior, so just keep this in the back of your mind. Now, 3 months down the road, I get called into the office, and the manager, who was very ineffective if you ask me, he had no backbone, let everybody get away with everything, but calls me into the office and says, we have a problem. And I'm like, okay, and what's that issue? And he's like, well, somebody doesn't feel safe working around you. And he kind of left it at that at the beginning. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And who are you talking about? Like, it's pretty vague. He's like, well, they think that you're a racist, and they said one time you were talking about drugs or something, and you asked them if they ever smoked crack. And I was like, well, you know, everybody talks about a lot of weird stuff. I was like, I know exactly who you're talking about now. And I was like, Sam started that conversation about drugs and everything. And he's like, I'm not mad that you guys were talking about it. I'm just telling you what the scenario is. And he's like, your response to that question was, no, I'm not black. So they also feel you're a racist, and they mentioned that you were a Holocaust denier and said something about you being a Nazi as well, and we have to take this seriously. Now I'm flabbergasted, but at the same time, like, me having these beliefs, I'm prepared for this kind of confrontation. Like, in my mind, I know that this is defensible because I haven't done anything wrong, right? So I look at him. I was like, we live in America, right? I was like, I have the freedom of speech, do I not? And he was like, yes. I was like, that conversation about the drugs happened on our free time. And I was like, I never said, no kidding, you haven't smoked crack. You're not black, or I'm not black, or whatever, it doesn't matter. The insinuation was only black people smoke crack, and I never said that, okay? And then I looked at him, I was like, I don't even have to justify the Holocaust denier remark, because even if I was a Nazi, there's nothing against the law unless I let that affect my work, and I make it visible. Just for the record, I'm not a Nazi. I hate all people equally. Okay? Especially after interactions like this. You might get lucky and see where it was. Anyway. So he wanted me to sign a paper that I was getting written up for this. Now, mind you, this would have been my second write-up because I was a fucking dumb fuck and didn't read the rules and regulations the first week I worked there and got caught smoking on property, right? That's all fine and dandy, whatever. I did that one to myself, but I couldn't afford this write-up because the third one means you're getting fired. And I knew that's what this kid's obligation was. Motivation, not obligation. It might have been an obligation to him for all I know. Now, there's another caveat. His girlfriend worked here too, okay? So I looked at this guy and I was like, whoa, I'm not signing this at all. Because what happens is you're setting a precedent for this kid to make a complaint about my personal beliefs that he can just make up on a whim if he wants to. You're setting a precedent for him or his girlfriend or any other employee in this building, which happens to be very, 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 very left-leaning because I live in Northampton, Massachusetts, okay? Right outside of Northampton, Massachusetts. And if anybody comes in there that doesn't agree with me, which is the majority of people, after catching wind of this and complain about me, they're getting me fired. So I was like, I'm not signing this. I was like, do whatever you have to do. I'm not signing it. A couple days go by, comes up to me, says he's not going to do anything about it. Talked to HR, and he's like, this is pretty unequivocal. There's nothing we can do. You pretty much have us with what you said about it being free speech and all of that. So I was like, okay, fine. Done and over with, right? I knew that wasn't going to be the case because this kid's mom works there, right? So a couple of weeks go by, I start getting complaints about my work around the office, cleaning-wise and everything else, which is bullshit. And then all of a sudden I start getting complaints about the bathroom to the point where people are planting stuff in spots that you only clean like once a fucking month or something, and it was just ridiculous. People going out of their way. To the point where I had a lady hiding her trash bag. Like, that's how cliquey this place is. It's like high school. So if one person doesn't like what you're up to or what you're doing, they will collude with everybody else who's been there forever. Because don't get me wrong, it's a great place to work if you're that kind of person. Because they treat you good if you fit their model, okay? What I'm saying is they'll click up to get rid of somebody they don't like. It happens there all the time. I was warned about this when I started working there by a couple of guys who I don't know how the hell they managed to even have a soul and still work there. There's a couple good guys there, and I want to give them a shout out because I wouldn't have lasted as long as I did. Now, this is just getting at a general idea of how the world's going to treat you if you go against the grain even a little bit and you cross one little line with the wrong person, and then it just starts an avalanche of shit. So for the next 3 months of complaints and trying to justify my work, I knew things were coming to a head because I can pick up on people's vibes, man. So I know something's coming. I'm preparing to get fired. I can just feel it, but I'm not going to give them the satisfaction of quitting because I want my unemployment rights and all of that stuff in case I need them. And just, it's on principle at this point, right? So sure enough, I get a call into the office and they accuse me of stealing because I sold product that they were throwing away and I was given permission to have on Craigslist. They tried to write me up for that, and I managed to get that dismissed off of the final write-up. And just to put icing on the cake to make sure they could get rid of me in case I got them on a technicality, because they knew that I'm good. They know that I'm good at defending myself by this point. Massachusetts is a right-to-work state, so they put work performance on there, and that means they can fire me for any reason they see fit, even though there was no justifiable reason to do that. So I lost a job at a great place to work other than the people. The way the guy runs the company is awesome. He's a decent guy, and he's in a situation where he lives in a town where I think a lot of stuff gets over his head really quick, and he doesn't know how to handle it because he holds a position in the community where if He took the steps he wanted to take. I can pick this up just from looking at him. He thinks a lot like me. So I have a feeling he respects me as a person because I'm not ashamed of being who I am, but at the same time, as a businessman, you can't run a business like that. You have to keep the majority of your employees happy, okay? And it's understandable, I guess. I could have been one of these dickbags and absolutely took him to town, because I still have that piece of paper with the original write-up where they tried to accuse me of being a Nazi and a racist without any cause at all, and they didn't even want to present to me my accuser. The only reason I knew who my accuser was is because they gave that information to me when they talked about a conversation that I had outside of work. So all I'm telling you, man, is like, be careful what you say around people if you're not willing to pay the price for it, because the Pied Piper will call you to pay your toll, man. And if you're not willing to pay it, don't play this fucking game. Just don't do it, because you will end up paying. You'll end up paying with either your reputation or your soul. There's no making it out any other way. Absolutely none. You're gonna pay one of the two. This is all ultimately about life no longer being the same as it was. After that experience, and mind you, this is right around the same time I started noticing a lot of changes, right? So I was going through this on top of doing all kinds of research, which made it even worse because I was talking to a few guys at work about all the stuff I was looking into. And I was getting them really interested in it to the point where they were asking me questions all the time. Even though I'd only spend 10 seconds answering them or whatever, word got back to the manager. They didn't like that I was becoming a social person and just starting to not create waves, but create an influence on people there, because it's cliquey. And they don't like when somebody can build a bridge between those groups. That's why there's cliques. If there's cliques, it's because the management wants those cliques to be there because they facilitate those cliques existing. It's just like high school, just like prison, right? The management facilitates those cliques existing because it makes the management of that operation easier. It might not make it more productive, but it makes it easier to manage. It's a management flaw that cliques even exist. But when somebody comes in and tries to alter the way that operates and it goes against the management style, it's not going to fit the numbers. It's not going to fit the operation. And then you're going to be singled out, and like the Japanese say, a nail that sticks out gets hammered. I was prepared to pay that price, man. The question you have to ask yourself is, are you? And if you're not, don't play the game.